Hi, we're Jonathan and Jennifer. Welcome to Well Traveled Life.
Today we are in the hamlet of Chapels, which is one of 6 hamlets in the village of Kirkby-in-Furness, which is known locally as Kirkby. We're in the Lake District of England.
Are we really there? Or are we virtually there?
Well, it's Christmas behind us at home, but where the video is today is England.
Okay.
And we have a host of characters we want you to meet, starting with Helen and John, who were our hosts. We will have a separate video with them because they were just fascinating and such good people.
This area is kind of on the cusp of the national park, which is where the lakes and the mountains are, the highest mountain in England. And it represents sort of where everything begins to flatten out and head towards the sea. So you've got the Duddon Estuary, which has always been referred to as the sort of unsung secret, the secret of the lakes area.
It's the gem,
really,
right?
yeah, it's the hidden gem. So you're not in the thick of the honeypots, but you're within very easy access of those same and they're honeypots for a reason. You know, you've got places like Grasmere with the gingerbread,
Ambleside.
Yep, Ambleside, Coniston,
Windermere.
all of those. There's like a spine road that runs up the length of all of them, and they all have their associated lakes. So this is kind of, you've got about, 25-minute drive to get to those.
Yeah.
But it's very much quieter.
Yeah.
You've still got a very large mountain in that direction, Black Combe, which dominates the landscape. You're still driving around it when you're sort of halfway up to St Bees, up the coast. But you do have the benefit of the coast here, which just transforms this bit of the county of Cumbria.
Yeah.
It's a very different geography.
Yeah.
Well, what a remarkable place that was to visit. Probably one of my favorite stops in England.
Yeah, it's at the top of the list. I totally agree. And I think for you, part of the top of the list was the place where we stayed.
The place that we stayed was just remarkable. I mean, it was just amazing to me. I loved it. I loved the couple that we
Helen and John.
leased it from, and it was just a great stay. I mean, plus you're in the Lake District, which is one of the most beautiful areas.
And it's in a really untouristy part of the Lake District. I thought that was a nice thing, that we weren't on Lake Windermere, so we weren't sort of in the hustle and bustle of things. You can get to it, but we weren't in the middle of that. Cupped on a terrace between the water and the mountains, our little cottage was surrounded by gardens and livestock and little rock walls everywhere, and was absolutely idyllic. We could walk to anywhere we needed to go. I think there's one part of the place that maybe Jonathan didn't love. You want to talk about the driveway?
Oh, just, if I'm driving this very wide car that I'm not used to on the wrong side of the road, all that kind of stuff. And just getting in there were a couple of places where there's a stone wall on one side and a stone house on the other, and I've got like that much in between the car.
And cars parked
And
on
a couple
the
times
side.
I had to back up and do all that, but I survived it. But it did affect my willingness to drive someplace. So we did a lot of walking there on the public trails, and a couple times we might have driven, but the thought of driving and pulling through there in the dark made that an impossibility. But yeah, I loved it there.
And actually, I have to say, it was so good that we didn't drive, because we could go drink beers, and we would not have driven.
No, and that's kind of I guess a common aspect of most of our stops. We were looking for locations that we wanted to be able to go out to dinner and have a beer or have a glass of wine and not feel like we were driving. So we always were looking for a place that was convenient to at least, one place to have dinner or to have a beer.
walking stops.
Yeah.
And I think my favorite place was the place that we found in our walking stops. We actually had two different places that we enjoyed. The first is the Ship, a pub that was maybe a mile down
At
the road.
least.
Oh, I think it just felt like more than a mile on the way home.
It was at least a mile.
But it was down a hill on the way there, maybe up a hill a little bit on the way back. We were staying in this tiny hamlet of chapels, but we met a lot of people who have permanent campers at Longlands Holiday Park. The walk was just 1.2 miles down a paved road, and we got to see a whole lot along the way. We passed by the Methodist church, stone walls and barns, typical old mailboxes, a darling little miniature horse who came for a visit. Lots of cottontails. Remember, this is Beatrix Potter country. The standing stone and garden bed that let us know we were in Kirkby-in-Furness, and of course those quintessential old rock buildings and rock walls that border and outline the surrounding countryside that generally are filled with cattle and sheep. And as we got closer to the sea and the train tracks, we knew we were almost at the pub. It was one of those experiences you can't orchestrate. So you hope for this, you hope that you walk into a place, you meet people, you become friends with everybody, you sing, you dance, you share beer, and you don't want to leave at the end of the night. And we got that.
We did, and I honestly had no reason to expect that. And when we first got there, my first reaction is one, it's not that big. Second, it was very crowded. We stood there for a few minutes looking for a table. There wasn't any. Jen went up to get us a couple of beers, and I'm looking around for a table or seat, and there is nothing. So my initial impression was, hey, we're gonna have a problem. We're gonna maybe have a beer standing up at the bar and then maybe leave or something like that.
But watch for our Joey. And watch for the landlord. She was absolutely magnificent. And meet the new friends that we met, because we just met great people. We felt like we met almost everybody, but the first people we spoke with and sat with were Steve and Val.
Not all like this. This is a beautiful pub. They're not all like these.
This is our favourite pub in the Lake District.
It is absolutely. Shipping's the favourite.
I think the nice thing about pubs in England is the fact that we didn't know each other. Yeah. And then we all sit together and we all have a couple of drinks, a chat, nice food.
We hope.
We hope.
Yeah.
So speaking of food, the Ship does not actually serve food. So here's a quick tour out the back of the pub. And what they have done is have got food trucks that will come in the evenings and serve dinners for certain times. So we hadn't eaten all day and we were getting kind of hungry. So I popped out back and took a look at the food truck that they had that evening. And as you can see, it was quite popular and there were lines there the entire time that they were serving. We got hamburgers at the flavor trailer and they were just great, but we didn't eat them until much later in the evening because we just got so busy on the inside.
And it's just a great way to relax and enjoy a drink with nice people in a traditional environment.
The pub is owned by Mark and Lisa Story. Lisa was a care worker with children, had done some extra work on the side in pubs, but they used to come up to the Lake District and live in an RV area. And when the opportunity came up for them to purchase the pub, they did that and are now celebrating their 1-year anniversary of ownership. They are incredibly well liked by the locals and have seemed to be welcomed and fit in exceptionally well. The Ship is a free house, meaning that they serve different kinds of beers from different brewers, and their stock is continually changing. Lancaster Blonde and the Golden Pippin are both local beers, and that's what we chose. We were too busy making new friends to actually do a beer tasting or even record our scores, but suffice it to say that we also were served a Lancaster IPA by somebody who thought we might like that, and we may have had more than one of the Golden Pippins and the Lancaster Blondes, so I'd say we liked them.
Wainwright's is a lovely beer. It's a session beer. It's one you can drink all day. It's not particularly strong. It's about 3.8, maybe 4%, and it's just a nice beer. Wainwright's.
Lancaster Blonde, I like.
Blonde man from Lancaster, I think she's talking about. Not the beer.
The entertainment kicked off with our Joey, who regaled us with songs that we knew from childhood to contemporary modern classics. He had all the moves, all the notes, all the tunes, and kept everybody moving and grooving throughout the night. Lisa, the landlord, joined us both on stage and on the dance floor. And it really was her energy that sort of brought everybody out and made it all okay for everyone to just go out and have a good time. It seemed obvious to us that part of the success of the Ship was Lisa's willingness to dive in and not just sell beers, but make people feel at home and welcome and like family. We met people, we found ourselves including people, and there wasn't anybody who was a stranger. We heard stories about the regulars. We want to introduce you to Bob. Bob spends a lot of time at the pub and is well cared for by the locals there. He drives his scooter, parks it out front, and then uses his crutches to get in the door, at which point he is met by the folks that know and expect him. He's got a seat where he sits always. They help get him situated and taken care of. And I think Bob is a point of pride at the pub, not just a good friend. So this is where Bob parks while he goes inside and has a pint. And we left with invitations to return, as well as invitations we extended for people to come visit us.
Easily one of the most spectacular nights of our whole trip, and we ended up kind of chasing that experience everywhere we went. Hey, could we get lucky to meet local people who are friendly, and in a pub that we really enjoy being at?
Yeah. And you can't orchestrate it. You can't chase it. You hope for it, but God, we were lucky. At the end of the evening, it was so hard to leave, but we had phone numbers and emails and people to be in touch with. And we hope that if any of you are watching this video, that you will comment and be in touch with us. We, 1, intend to come back, and 2, hope that you will come visit us. Upon leaving the pub, we got lots of goodbyes and a great send-off. We still had our mile walk home, but we had beautiful skies and a beautiful night, and it just seemed like everything was perfect.
The Ship is the oldest pub in Kirkby, near the station, and has only just been taken over in the last few years by a young lady who's really keen. So lots of events going on, lots of parties, and a bit like
how found it last night, where it has a little bit of somebody comes in and does the food, the flavour trailer, he moves around quite a bit, and then they have some live music, and it's just, they have quiz pubs. It's just really, it's a good home, it's a good setting.
It is. We went in there
place.
Halloween last year. It was hilarious.
Yeah, it was chaos,
the outfits, Lisa's outfit, everybody's outfit.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
We have meetings in there sometimes of the local, we're involved with the footpaths and cycleways committee, just so that people can still, get through without being tripped over by brambles. We went in there for one of the meetings. It's a really popular pub. We couldn't actually hear anything anyone was saying at the other end of the table.
That's good.
I believe we found the Greyhound pub, which was really a beautiful old inn and pub with some very interesting ties to the community and that sort of thing. And it was a completely different experience, except that we met another couple that you're going to meet down the line again, because it's that connection that you make with people.
But in fairness to the second place, what's the name?
Greyhound.
In fairness to the Greyhound, it was Sunday night, and Sunday's kind of a big deal. We went there. There is something in England that you'll learn about called the Sunday roast. And when we got there, it wasn't terribly crowded, and it certainly didn't have all the excitement of the ship.
We met Dave and Mo. You're going to meet Dave and Mo when we get up into Scotland again.
Balnakeil, near Durness.
Okay.
Northwest.
Okay.
There's a craft village.
Craft village.
And a beautiful beach.
Okay. It was just a different experience, but it was equally good, just in a very different way.
So the path you're going to take tonight, which is just where you've been, but then after about 100 metres you turn off and you'll see a sign saying Greyhound, and you're going to go that one for about 20 minutes.
I saw that one. Is that okay?
That's the one that takes you straight to the Greyhound.
And is that there's there's a sign and there's a fence on both sides of it.
Yeah, and you just walk straight
That's
through.
right.
You've got
You take the first fence that I come to.
You take.
Or the first gate, I should say.
It's not even a gate. It's just an
There's
opening.
2 gates, and then
And
there's
there's
a
an
little...
And the path is in between.
It's a bit Harry Potter.
So.
We had a 3/4 mile walk up a hill along a footpath and down right into the heart of Greyhound, the little hamlet where the Greyhound is. Footpaths are for public use and are often marked with some kind of signage. There's a lot of rules that go along with how to effectively and appropriately use footpaths so that you're being a good neighbor. Because even though they're for public use, they're often traversing across private property or pastures and that sort of thing. So you need to make sure that you're being safe for the livestock and for yourself amongst the livestock. We will do a separate video with the rules of the walking path. But suffice it to say, we were fortunate that we were here in the summer and our walking paths were well lit pretty much during the daytime. On our way home from Greyhound, it got a bit darker, and even at twilight, you're in some kind of shrouded areas and it can be dark. So it's always a good idea to have a torch or a flashlight. We mentioned earlier that the Greyhound has an interesting history. Right next door to it is a publishing company, which is owned by a local gentleman who is from the area, and he has helped to finance the Greyhound and make sure that that is a going concern.
It's just down the road, walking distance. It's unusual in that it's owned by a local philanthropist who lives up in Broughton, the next village along, who he's the most successful publisher in the country, but you won't have heard of him. He does all the study guides for exams.
So not bestsellers
Not
necessarily.
bestsellers, no.
But lots of sellers.
Yes.
Exactly. But he is really generous to the village he grew up in and the surrounding area. So his office is next door, possibly a vested interest. But he subsidises the pub, gave it back to the village, to the community,
This building is very old. It's 300 years old. That is a long time. This place has got a lot of history. Yeah, we tried to keep in the authentic look, the authenticity of the place. You know, we didn't want to change it too much, like what usually happens to all the pubs in the recent times. They all, make it all shiny and nice and new, and sometimes it pays to have like quite a shabby chic pub because it brings people in. So
The Greyhound is also a free house, meaning they serve different beers from different breweries. And we chose the Black Sheep, which is a local beer, and we also did another of the Golden Pippins, which we'd had the night before at the ship, but we really enjoyed it, so we did that again.
I am sober. I don't drink.
Okay.
But the favourite ones of the locals are probably the Black Sheep. And then the Carlsberg, which is not a local beer, but still, everyone drinks that. But the Yorkshire beer, Black Sheep, sells really well. That's our big seller.
Especially if you're new to the beers, don't be afraid to ask for a tester. Everybody was very kind about giving us tastes so that we were sure that we liked what we were getting. The British system of weights and measures is really interesting. So for weight, they're going to use stone instead of pounds, and for volume, like buying a beer, you're going to buy it in pints. And if you're driving, you will operate in distance in miles. But there's a lot of other areas where they'll use metric. And then, of course, the currency is the pound. They are no longer on the euro, so it's all in pounds. In many pubs, you will actually go and order your food up at the bar. For this particular one, it was very quiet. We went ahead and got our beers at the bar and then went and found a seat and ordered off the menu from our seats. The menu is a pretty typical pub menu with lots of local ingredients, which we really enjoyed. And also good to know, tons of homemade items. At most pubs, you need to make a reservation and pre-order your meal, especially for a Sunday roast. We were actually too late. By the time we made reservations earlier in the day, the Sunday roasts were sold out.
It's pies. Yeah, it's pies. Yeah, homemade every day by my mum. I can't even have one. I'm not allowed to. I've snuck one every so often. I can't help myself.
So we were the last two people to pre-order a meat pie, which we actually stole from Dave and Mo, who were sitting next to us and might well have ordered meat pies, but we got the last two.
I've worked here for a very long time, probably since my parents took over. Coming on 6 years, yeah.
The Greyhound is a really good country local pub. Good beer, good pub food, and it's just friendly atmosphere.
Homemade pies.
Yeah, and it's just a nice.
We see the sign on the restaurant
Yeah.
that says "Best Pies in the World."
Exactly. That's possibly.
Arguably, yeah.
Possibly, but it's a very dog-friendly pub, and it's just a good
name.
pub. It's a good pub.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's very welcoming, very homely. If you ever want a really nice pie, if I'm speaking to the whole world right now, then come to the Greyhound, come to Grisbeck, because we're lovely people, small community, we're strong together.
After enjoying our meat pies and meeting Dave and Mo, it was time for our walk back on the footpath. Footpaths are not for fashionistas. There is a good chance you're going to encounter thorny brambles, stinging nettles, overhanging leaves, rabbit holes, and muddy ground. So dress for the terrain, not for a fashion show.
You in camouflage?
I took part of the footpath with me. The Lake District is that place where houses have names, stones are stacked, gardens are well taken care of, footpaths are well worn, views are immense, animals abound, pubs are happy places, and like your second living room. The Lake District is family, it's home.
Really need to think about it. I would say Greyhound.
The Greyhound.
I would say
the Mosses because of the wildlife.
Yeah, that's true. Walk on the Mosses. I would say the beach. At Roanhead
There you
because
go.
it's so wild and nobody knows about it.
Or before Roanhead and just down to Askham.
Yeah, okay.
Just across the level crossing.
Okay.
Keep
Not in
going.
any particular order, but
No,
put
but
the,
those
don't
three.
put the pub
Go to the
first.
beach.
Okay.
You've got an expanse of sand and
And the dogs can
acres
just
of
go.
area to walk, and the dogs can just run. and the sea's about 10 miles out
And
that
it's quite
way.
unique, actually, that coastal section at Morecambe. They talk about the difference between low and high tide can be as much as 12 miles. But when the tide, 12 kilometres, 8 miles. But when the tide comes in, it comes in faster than a galloping horse. So it can be quite dangerous, as well as an incident 15 years ago where some cockle picking cockles, and unfortunately there was quite a disaster, and 12 people died because the sea comes in so quickly. So so if I was saying 3 things for this area, we would go for
the beach.
Yes.
Definitely.
At Askham.
At Askham.
Yes.
Acres of sand, beautiful view. You can see the mountains, so you know that you're between the mountains and the sea, but there'll be practically nobody else there apart from dog walkers. Then.
Okay, I thought of another one.
Oh, look out.
Okay, I would say one of the local pubs, be it the Ship or the Greyhound.
Yes.
I would definitely visit. Sorry, a must, because we love it, is I would get a train up the west coast from Kirkby Station, and get on a train and go up the west coast to St Bees and up there, and it is stunning. It is so beautiful. And then we often go to Whitehaven for lunch and then walk over the cliffs. It's an 8-mile walk back to St Bees and then catch the train back. And it's a beautiful train journey.
Yeah.
So that would have to be in as well.
I think so, because you see
your
mosses. A very different side of the same county that's produced all these mountains and lakes. Suddenly, its coastline, and it's breathtaking. Yeah, the mosses for the wildlife. Beautiful.
Okay, tell me about the mosses for the wildlife.
There are boardwalks all the way around. It's a very protected site. It's managed very carefully, gently, but specifically to maintain that balance of wildlife. It's peat bogs essentially, isn't it?
As you're aware, we're trying to stop now taking that peat out. So I think by next year, am I right in saying, you will not be able to purchase
anything other than peat-free compost.
You can only buy peat-free compost. So there's a massive push for that. We're a bit slow. We're a bit behind, but we are getting there.
I think so. But so it's really making sure that ecology is managed and protected.
I will leave with this thought. The Lake District is definitely someplace that I want to go back to. I feel like, one, we had an amazing time and I want to go back. I want to stay in the place we stayed at, and I want to see that couple again that owned it.
Helen and John.
I want to see Helen and John again. I certainly want to do that. I want to go back to the Ship. But I feel like we didn't really get as much sightseeing to the district, go to the lake and the shore and all that as much as possible. So I'm really looking forward to coming back, and it is definitely one of those places that is on our list. I don't think we got enough of that. I want to go back.
We had 3 days there and it wasn't enough. So I would say Lake District, you need a minimum 4 to 6 days, minimum. And there's a fair amount of area to cover. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to do. It's everything from trains to beaches, high tides and low tides, like tides that come quickly. There's steam trains, there's lakes, there's boats on lakes. There's just so much. You have Beatrix Potter in the area. There's just a lot there. So 4 to 6 days minimum. And so we owe a week back with Helen and John.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us. Next week, we will be in Scotland and we will start in Glasgow.
You might as well just aim the camera over there and tag me over there. See if you can't get a word in.
I've just been deleted. What she said.
What did I just say?